it's the right button. Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I'm Adam.
I'm
And with me,
Peter.
there we go. I was like, is this gonna be another one of those opportunities where he sits there and waits for me to talk, or do I? Okay. Um, so this is also, I don't remember if I told you, this is technically the 300th episode.
Congratulations.
So we are up to 300 now. I think that's also because there was a point where Spreaker glitched and dumped a bunch. So it's technically 300 on the stream because I'm going to move the Academy Awards episode up to tomorrow. Well, the past for people listening. Anyway, um, so we're here today to talk about DC because DC is ending the DCEU as we know it, and
Mhm.
they're going into DC Studios. So we're going to talk about the various projects that have happened since the launch of the DCEU, which started with Man of Steel. So obviously no Dark Knight because that was pre. No Joker because Joker exists independent, as does the Batman.
Mhm.
And I feel like the Batman
Yes.
would be an easy number one if we did that. Although I have a feeling we probably have the same number one as well. Um, but before we
Mhm.
do that, so
Do you
of the
remember?
go ahead.
Do you remember when Batman v Superman was coming out? There was all these conspiracies about how it's actually a sequel to the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight movies,
Yeah, I
and
do
that
because
like
we
the
talked about it on the show, and I was a person who was like, "That'd be cool if that was it."
yeah, and it was the V is actually a five or
Yes,
something.
yes. No, it was the a sequel to the Keaton, if I
That
remember
was it.
correctly, because
Mhm.
it was the Robin that died was going to be the Robin from Batman Forever, and I was like, "I'll
But
be
then
fine
that
with that if that's the case."
that had almost no plot
No,
significance.
not at all. Exactly. Which I think is kind of the fun thing about the DCEU. It kind of is a case study in like, let's just announce everything and hope that people get it, like a good feeling about it, and then we'll run with it from there. And then almost nothing they announced ever happened. So like that Cyborg movie that never happened. So before we get into it, what do you think
Yeah.
went wrong with the DCEU? Because I think at this point it's safe to say it was a resounding, not complete failure, but because it's not the Dark Universe, so it's not a complete failure. It's pretty close
Mhm.
though. It's pretty close to that. So what do you think went wrong?
I think the biggest thing is that they tried to skip ahead too fast. Like they tried to do their Avengers movie as their second movie, and they without building up to it.
Yes,
It's because they have Batman fighting Superman in the second movie. It's like everyone like that is something everyone wants to see, but you have to establish them as characters first and like who they are, and like even if it's this character everyone knows for so long, like
right.
people want to have like a standalone movie and like see who this Batman is and then build up to that, and then you get the fight later on, or this people uniting. And instead of having one Superman movie where that a lot of people didn't like, and then the next movie, okay, now there's also Batman and Wonder Woman, and Lex Luthor, Doomsday. We're gonna show Cyborg and the Flash,
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
at once.
While
And
being
then they seem
incredibly
to continue
annoying
to do
about it the
that
whole
with the
time.
rest of their standalone movies.
Right.
Yes, and
Like
taking it way too seriously.
exactly, because it's like the thing is, it's like when you look at like why they chose Batman v Superman, it very obviously was Zack Snyder loved The Dark Knight Rises, or The Dark Knight Returns, and he
Mhm.
was like, let's do that. But the difference is The Dark Knight Returns was not like in the 1960s when Batman and Superman were first teaming up. It came in what was it, the late 80s at that point when that first came out, or early 90s, and when you have that happen you have decades of here are two characters who we know are friends and all of that. Theatrically, Batman and Superman had never interacted before. We had never had a movie where those two characters are sharing the screen, let alone actively doing something together or acknowledging the other exists, except
Mhm.
for Man of Steel having Wayne Industries crap all over it. Um, but
Yeah.
that's not enough to warrant the entire, having that start out. And then the thing is too, it's like when we look at like the issues with like Justice League compared to the Snyder Cut, now that we have the benefit of hindsight, the failings of Justice League do fall a lot on Joss Whedon, the theatrical edition, but let's not act like the Snyder Cut is a perfect movie either. By and large, what should have happened was there should have been a Cyborg movie before that because of how much
Mm.
Cyborg factors into the story. It's like right now there's a rumored release date shift going on with Marvel because they're moving stuff down so they can have more characters introduced so that way they resonate more when they get to Secret Wars. Again, it's all speculated and it's all rumored. And like they're using these special presentations, it appears, to kind of introduce more characters and flesh them out more. So like when they get to Midnight Suns, allegedly they're doing a Midnight Suns movie. By the time they get there, they're going to have done a special presentation for Man Thing, a special presentation for Werewolf by Night. Moon Knight had an entire show, a special presentation for Ghost Rider, and it's like by that point we'll know who all these characters are. By the time you get to Justice League, the only three characters that we had known were Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. And none of those three are the key focal point of the movie because Cyborg is the MacGuffin of the movie. And it's just that, like, and then they started going off on these other little tangents, which is fine if you want to do that. But it's like, are you trying to connect them? Are you not trying to connect them? Have you given up on that? Where
Mm.
was that go? And then fucking Black Adam happened, and I was just like, what the fuck are you doing at all?
Yeah.
Uh,
And also Martian Manhunter
yeah, I
randomly being in it.
see, and the thing is too, it's like that felt. I think I told you this when he announced that he saw that, like, oh, I always had Martian Manhunter in the film. I think I told you like that day where it's like, yeah, it just so happens that the black military guy that is the exact same thing they did in Supergirl 5 years ago. Yeah. Oh, you had that idea first just because you say so? Okay, sure. Like, yeah, I'm sure you did. But because there's no indication anywhere in those two movies. I've watched those two movies specifically to see if there's any indication that this guy's Martian Manhunter, and there is not anywhere in those movies.
Yeah, it's completely random.
Exactly. Um, so before we get into the old stuff, have you read any of the release slate that James Gunn has put out under his new thing?
No. I also think
Okay.
that's weird that James Gunn is the new head of DC.
I understand the thought process. I think that someone at Warner Brothers thinks that he had a lot bigger role at Marvel than he did.
Didn't they also ask Todd Phillips for
Yeah,
that?
yeah, that was the other thing was they asked Todd Phillips was the first choice because they saw the success of Joker and how little that movie cost, and then I think it cost under 30 million, and then it made like 800 million on a rated R
Yeah.
movie, and it's like okay, that makes sense if you want him to run it based on that return, but it's like how the fuck do you do a movie with any bigger character besides Joker and Batman and any of the grounded ones and have that kind of
Mhm.
return? You just can't.
Yeah. It's like they can't see far in the future. They just see this immediate profit and they're like, perfect. He'll run
And
it
I
for the
think that
next 10
perfectly sums
years.
up Warner Brothers. But like
Yeah.
I think putting Gunn there is entirely because they thought he had a much bigger role at Marvel. I think that he did a lot for establishing the look and feel of cosmic Marvel, but by and large, it's like a lot of what was going on could have been done independent of him. Like all he really had say on was Guardians, and the Guardians had minimal impact um through the Infinity Saga or anything like that. So I think it's just that. It's just people really loved the Guardians movies and then that people really loved Suicide Squad. So it's like that's
Yeah.
kind of the
I
entire
liked because I'm really like, even though from this list, I'm like, oh, I've actually seen most of these DC movies. I'm really not a super big superhero fan, but I did like the Guardian movies. Like especially the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie was one of my favorite of those Marvel movies at the time.
yeah, I think Guardians 2 was less good. Um
Mm-hmm.
I think Guardians 2 was less good, but I think that it's just like they needed I think the idea of doing putting him in charge is not exactly the strongest because I don't think he's exactly a. There's a difference between a director and a studio head, and I don't know if he's gonna have his fingerprints all over everything that happens over the course of the entire what's it called over the course of the entire run from there on out. And if it is, I don't know how well that's gonna translate.
Yeah, because I'm assuming he still wants to make his own movies too. I think for this job, you need someone that this is their job, that they devote to like
Right.
setting up a universe.
Right. That's what Kevin Feige did at Marvel. That's what Walter Hamada did at DC. I mean, and Walter Hamada had his issues, but by and large, during his run, he wasn't doing that terribly. Um, when you look at what movies came out under him, and when you look at the list of what
Mhm.
Gunn has proposed, it's like it's very obviously he picked the things he's interested in, and I'm not sure if there's a wider audience for that.
What did he pick?
Okay, so there is the first movie is Superman Legacy, which is a Superman movie based on All Star Superman, which me and you have been saying for about a decade now. They should have started with that instead of Man of Steel. Because I think that that's part of the
Mhm.
problem with the DCEU is starting with Man of Steel, which is this different take on Superman. That was a dumb decision to begin with. And Grant Morrison's All
Yeah,
Star run
people are
is
not ready for it.
exactly. Well, I mean, um, then
I
there
liked it.
is. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it's clearly not a mass marketable movie. Like it's
Yeah, I
not
also love
designed for
Destruction
general
Porn.
audience. Okay, well, yeah, Geostorm is great. The Authority is the next movie. Now, have you heard of The Authority before?
No.
Okay. It is a Wildstorm comic that's kind of like The Boys, but
Oh,
kind of not, where it's like a black and white morality for superheroes. And it's like, okay, that could be cool. But again, who is that for if not James Gunn as your second movie?
mhm.
Like, that's not a good second movie, I don't think. Like, I'll watch it. It sounds interesting, but it's not a great second movie. Then there is The Brave and the Bold, which is a Batman movie about Batman and his relationship with Damian Wayne, um, who's going to be 10 years old and just rescued from the League of Shadows. So he's going to be
Okay.
an assassin and all of
Wait, so
that.
is that just going to be completely new
Yes, entirely new.
Batman then?
Yes, entirely new Batman,
Is it
entirely
going
new Superman.
to be? So will this be the new Batman for the DC universe, or just going to be another standalone Batman universe?
This is all of this stuff is DC Studios. So everything here is going to be
Okay,
cohesive and it's going to cross over with itself and it's going to,
got it.
do that kind of thing. Everything they're doing with Joker and with Robert Pattinson and all of that, that's all independent and standalone. That's under the Warner Brothers label. This is under
Okay.
DC Studios.
Mhm.
So this is different. Um, then there is I thought there was another movie. Maybe I didn't write it down. Okay. This is the only movie that I'm really interested in to a big degree. Um, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, which is a fairly recent comic. Um, but Tom King decided to do a run on Supergirl, which sounds way worse than I meant it. But what he does is Supergirl is always been portrayed as kind of like Superman, when it's like if she had actual emotions, that would probably not be the case because she's Superman. If Superman was 16, saw the destruction of his planet, got sent to Earth, but on the way got sent into the Phantom Zone and had to live there for a while, and then ended up on Earth. So it probably wouldn't have ended up the same way. So that's that version of
Oh yeah, yeah.
Supergirl. So that could be
That sounds
interesting.
much better.
Yeah. So she's gonna have her own thing. Um, I thought there was a fourth movie. I maybe didn't write it down. There on television, the first show is gonna be Creature Commandos, which is an animated show with a bunch of monsters that are teaming up to solve problems under Amanda Waller. Cool, I guess. Again, I don't know who that's for. Um, then there's a Waller show, which again, oh, the other movie was Swamp Thing, which
Great.
again, I don't know why the fuck you're doing Swamp Thing this early. Like,
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work.
no. Um, and then Waller, I don't. It depends on who the supporting cast is, because like Viola Davis is great, but you need a good supporting cast around her. Otherwise, the movie's not gonna
Mhm.
work right. The Lantern Show sounds cool. It's Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan's Green Lanterns on Earth trying to solve a True Detective style mystery, which could be cool.
Hmm.
And then there's a Booster Gold show, which I'm all for a Booster Gold show. He comes back from the 25th century. He wants to be a hero, so he's using future tech to act like a hero. It's a cool idea. I think it'll work as a movie,
Oh, okay.
as a show. But I think that like this is the first half of what they're calling chapter one. They're not calling it phases because Marvel calls it phases. Their chapter one is called Gods and Monsters, and I'm like, I don't know how this exactly will translate in the same way because I mean, I think pretty obviously they're building towards Vandal Savage. That's what I get from this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're gonna
Is
have
there
the
going to be a
Green
new Lex
Lanterns,
Luthor?
yes, I think everyone's getting recast except for Weasel from the Suicide Squad
Good.
and Amanda Waller.
Okay.
I think everyone else is getting recast. I think that they said they wanted Ben Affleck to direct something, but nothing is confirmed yet. And they don't have a director for Superman yet, although I think Gunn is basically the front runner to direct it. I think Peter Safran wants Gunn to direct Superman. Um,
Okay.
so I don't know how I feel about that, but we'll see how that goes. Um, so the big thing for today is we're going to rank the existing movies from Man of Steel through what was the last one that came out? Black Adam was the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you didn't see three of the entries on the list. There are 13 entries on the list. Because again, omitting Joker and the Batman. And this also includes Peacemaker, which you did not see Peacemaker. And what were the other two you didn't see?
Black Adam and
Okay, you didn't miss much.
Shazam.
Shazam's not bad. Black Adam, you can skip though. All right, so you want to start at the bottom and move up to the top?
Yeah, so my bottom pick.
I have a feeling we'll have the same one. So you go ahead with your last pick.
All right, my last pick is the theatrical cut of the Justice League movie.
Interesting. Why?
I just think it was so horrible. I didn't see it in the theaters, and then when just like the controversy surrounding it, I'm not like a release a Snyder cut person, but just that the reshoots they did just to add in quippy jokes that became so annoying like during the movie. I've never been a Joss Whedon fan to begin with. I always thought
Right.
he was kind of insufferable.
All of his characters
So
sound
then
exactly the
and then
same.
and then just the like just how the movie just got kind of like ripped apart. How bad some of the effects looked, and just over like I almost like forgot what the plot of the movie was. Like that when I watched the Snyder cut version, it felt like a completely different or new movie because I had no idea what was going on during the theatrical cut of the Justice League movie, and it just felt like the representation of like studio interference and like the studio like messing up things for at least for me.
Yes, I'll say that. That said, the only reason it's not lower for me is because it has, and I know it's a dumb line, and I know I'm gonna get shit for this because it got cut from the Snyder cut because it's a Joss Whedon line. But I was willing to forgive a lot from that movie when in the third act Superman shows up to save the day in the suit and he's all ready to go. And he says, I'm a big fan of truth, but I'm also a big fan of justice. And then he punches the fuck out of Steppenwolf. I was like, I'm willing to forgive a lot of nonsense in this movie because of that. But yeah, the movie's still not great. I didn't have it last. I had it at number 4 for me. My last place movie was Suicide Squad, the 2016 Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I'm assuming the 2016 one.
Yeah, because when I hear studio interference, that's the one I think of because this is the one where the movie was done, and then after that trailer from Comic-Con came out, they re-edited the movie, and the people that did the edit wasn't David Ayer, it was the company that made the trailer had the final edit on the movie.
Cool.
The movie is
I didn't know
nonsensical.
that.
It is like no character is fleshed out at all, and it's like the entirety of Katana's character development is her being introduced. Like, this is Katana, she has my back. Don't get killed by her because the sword steals the soul of its victims. And it's like, okay, great. That's all we know about Katana for the entire movie, and it's dumped in a paragraph of fucking exposition when she's introduced. It's so
Yeah.
Everything about it's poorly done. The effects are awful. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah, she basically is just an inanimate object that is a
Yes.
katana.
Yes.
Like she's not a character. Should
And you
I
know
should I
what?
say where I put that one?
Yeah, sure.
That's my number 9. That's my next worst one.
Oh, okay.
Is the
Yeah, you want to go right into that?
Yeah, so and basically all the same things with you. I saw that in theaters,
I
and
did
yeah, it
too.
was like nonsensical. The effects are horrible. Like the zombie creatures
Oh
look
my
so
God, that are
bad.
faceless, just
Um,
stupid. The amount of helicopter crashes in this fucking movie to the point where it's like when Amanda
oh
Waller's on
yeah,
the
oh yeah, and
helicopter, her helicopter says Waller on the side of it, so you know it doesn't crash.
yeah, or when the helicopters all take off and then immediately drop down to
Yes.
street level so they can get shot down.
And it's like, okay, so we need to fight Superman, so let's get together these idiots. And it's like, but none of them have powers commensurate with that. Like, you couldn't find someone better to do this. Like, and it's like the only character who has any moment to really look at what they are is uh Will Smith, Deadshot, and it's like, okay, I don't need this. So like the only character to give development to is the only character I don't care about. Oh, and Harley Quinn and all that Joker stuff was nonsense, which was so annoying because Jared
As
Leto went
yeah,
so method
Jared
for that
Leto.
movie that it's like, and it's like people try to say after the fact, like, oh no, he didn't. It's like bullshit because if he didn't, they would have said that because it's a marketing
Mhm.
nightmare to have your lead actor be this much of a dick to everyone on set.
Yeah, wasn't it? Was it the director or someone else at DC was like, yeah, he actually like was scary when he was in the Joker like costume or
I
something.
think it was
I
various
don't know.
people at DC who were like, I was getting like, he was actually scared. And then it's like he's in the movie, and I'm like, oh, this is just goofy. Like, and it's
Yeah,
like
with all the
I was
tattoos.
pulling for it too, because it's like I'm like, oh, this is the kind of Joker I like. I don't need to see anarchist Joker. Just give me a guy who's a fucking criminal who's there trying to make money, and he just got this weird ass shtick where he acts like a fucking goofball all the time. Just give me that. And Jared Leto was like, oh no, I'll make it infinitely worse. Don't worry, so we'll never
Yeah.
get that again. Like, just fuck that.
hmm
My number two worst was Wonder Woman 1984.
Okay, that's my next one too.
Okay, we're working out here a little bit.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 1984. I really did not like that movie. It's just again nonsensical. I'm not entirely sure why we needed to go with this wishing stone to bring back Steve Trevor. There's a whole weird rapey subtext with that where it's like Steve Trevor is not actually a person. He's like she's seeing him over someone else. So like she has sex with this guy and it's like, oh, she definitely just raped him because like that guy couldn't consent because he was, there as Steve Trevor. It's a weird situation if you think about it any. And then like Pedro Pascal is great, and I think if Pedro Pascal doesn't do such a good job in this movie, it'd be lower. But
Mhm.
it's just like the whole rules of their wishing just make absolutely no sense. And I know it's a nitpicky thing, but the entire movie hinges on that. So like if you're gonna have like, and by the way, if someone says I wish to be an apex predator, like why the fuck does it make her into a cheetah? Because a cheetah is not an apex predator.
That was so dumb. Yeah.
Like like I wish I was like the third highest predator in the food chain. Like no, like it's so stupid. And then it's like, oh, and then we're in the White House. There's a fight in the White House, and it's I've watched that movie once and I fell asleep halfway through it, and then I watched it again in full, and I was like, oh, I should have just not watched the end of this. This is not good.
Yeah, it's just so boring.
Yeah, like none of the
The best
actions.
review I heard of it was I was on a plane and the guy next to me was like, "Hey, if you want to fall asleep, put on Wonder Woman 1984." This was without he just said this to me.
Unprompted. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a good movie. It's just and the thing is too, it's like I had high hopes for it going in because the trailers looked great, and it's like Patty
hmm
Jenkins came back for it, and she did a great job with the first one, and it's just this one was not great. It's just not good. Um, yeah. So my next one because that was your third. My third is
Yes.
Black Adam. Because as boring as the other one was, as boring as it was, Black Adam has the sin of what's it called? Just being nonsensical for the sake of being like I think I told you this when I saw it. It was like, okay, so we have an edgy teenager writing Shazam. So it's like he's Shazam, but like his son got killed, and then he gets the power, and then he kills people, and that's why he's a bad guy. But it's like he's an anti-hero, but it's like he doesn't kill any good guys. So like, does that really make him an anti-hero then? Because it's like everyone he kills is unambiguously a bad guy. Like they're very clear about that everyone he kills is a bad guy. And it's like, is Captain America an anti-hero in the first Captain America movie when he just goes in and just fucking massacres Nazis with an assault rifle? I don't think that that's something that people discussed at all about that. Like, or like, is Wonder Woman an anti-hero when she kills German soldiers throughout the first Wonder Woman movie? It's like, that's not what an anti-hero is. And then like for the bad guy, it's let's take Shazam, make him edgy, and then take that version, make him even edgier by some like teenager who's in his death metal phase, because then it's Shazam, but he gets all of his powers from demons, and it's 6 different names for the devil, and he gets his powers from hell, and he's got these giant fucking ram horns, and it's like the only reason this movie wouldn't be lower is because I really love the Justice Society in this movie. There's a lot of interesting things they do with like Hawkman and with Dr. Fate. I don't think Dr. Fate needed to die in this fucking movie. That was a big mistake, I think. Especially considering you die and then his helmet disappears, and it's like, oh, so now he really can't come back. Awesome. I really love that. Yeah, it's so nonsensical. And then it's like the post-credit scene's so fucking dumb in retrospect too.
Is that the Superman thing?
Yes, we're super. It's like it basically what happens is it's like the entire thing is for whatever reason Amanda Waller doesn't call in a Suicide Squad. Okay, in Peacemaker, you didn't see Peacemaker, so in Peacemaker, her daughter reveals to the world what Waller's been doing with the criminals and like what the Suicide Squad is. So it gets shut down by the government. So when we get to this movie, she can't use a Suicide Squad. She has to use the Justice Society. But like, why is the Justice Society beholden to Waller? Whatever, don't think about it too hard. So they subdue him, and the only way he gets to stop being, Black Adam is he says Shazam to depower himself, which again, if you're trying to do a dark, gritty movie like this, the minute a character has to say Shazam to get their powers, you should probably revisit Dark and Gritty on a movie. So he depowers, and they bring him to a Task Force X facility to be held. And they put him in this Task Force X facility. And in that facility, there are a bunch of other supervillains in custody. And I'm like, so why the fuck did you send the Justice Society? Why didn't you send the Suicide Squad? Like, it's just so dumb. And then it's like, so then at the end of the movie, she's like, she sends like a hologram to whatever the hell the place is, Kondak. And she's like, okay, so this nation that's now yours, this is now your prison. If you leave here, we'll kill you. And he's like, yeah, good fucking luck with that. Who are you gonna send? And then Superman appears, and he's like, you've made a lot of people really scared. And it's like, okay, cool, but like, that's the movie I want to see.
So Superman.
Yeah, like I like if you're gonna have this happen, like just show me that movie from the beginning. Don't show me this bullshit with him fighting fucking Hawkman and me supposed to be impressed that he's beating the fuck out of Hawkman. Like it should be a foregone conclusion that he could beat the fuck out of Hawkman. I don't know. The whole movie was just so bad. So you're number 4 then.
All right, my number 4 is Aquaman.
Really? Mine's not that much higher.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I didn't like it. It's just the rest of my list I like more.
I think DC has 2
I did like
tiers, like where it's like good and bad. Like I think we're out of bad now. We're into after my next one we're out of bad. But and then you're into like good. I don't think there's any that are until you get to the very end. I don't think there are any that are great. But why is Aquaman so low for you? Is the question I have.
I don't know. I think there's some parts of it are just kind of forgettable for me.
Yeah.
Overall I did like the movie, but it's just I think I've only seen it once. I don't think I wanted to ever rewatch it again. It is funny just how much stuff is in it. That towards the end of the movie, all of a sudden there's just a giant war, like Lord of the Rings style, between like crab people and like another race.
They're like two
just
like
like
and
going
they're two
on.
shrimp just kind of slapping each other, and it's like this is kind of silly. Like,
Yeah, but then the stuff like when they get dragged down by those like monster creatures, all that stuff is cool.
yeah,
Like the flashback stuff is kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, then it's like all this like Lost Kingdom stuff and like introducing the evil stepbrother, and it's just
Black
so
Manta's
many
there
things
for
are going on.
reasons.
Whoa, there's like two villains.
Yeah, and it's like,
Um,
why is Black Manta
the
there?
Willem Dafoe is fun.
Yeah, it has one of the worst line readings in any DC movie. It's up there.
Oh,
It's
the
in the
flashback.
yes. He's like, you mean they killed her because of me? It's
Yeah,
like it's up there with like Forrest Whitaker in Rogue One when he talks to Jin and she's like, "You mean you're here to kill me?" Like that.
yeah,
At least in Andor, he toned that down greatly, which is nice. He's not that over the top
yeah. His
ridiculous with his voice in
crazy
Andor.
voice.
Yeah, he fixed that a little bit, but um, yeah, I didn't hate Aquaman. I said it to you the other day where it's like it felt like they didn't know if they were getting a second movie, so they were like, let's just throw everything we know people will associate with Aquaman into one movie and hope for the best. And it worked out for them. It made over $1 billion, but I don't think that it was
Mhm.
for the. I don't think the end result was the best movie possible. Um, there's definitely problems with the movie, but it's at least colorful and interesting enough to make it interesting to watch. Um, it is just kind of a
Yeah.
reverse Black Panther, and it came out the same year as Black Panther, and Black Panther's a much better movie. Which even
Mhm.
Black Panther is
Yeah, I
not
do agree
the
with that.
best movie. Um, my next lowest is Theatrical Justice League. I had
Mhm.
it a little bit high because it's a movie that I would step into rewatch, not rewatch, but like if for the bottom bunch, my thing was if this was being shown on TNT, would I turn it on?
Yeah,
And
that's a good metric.
the theatrical Justice League, I would if it's in the third act, because while the third act is ridiculous, and while all that nonsense is ridiculous, like there are so many good small moments in that third act that like yeah maybe Joss Whedon directed them. Yeah, maybe you have this random fucking Eastern European family we keep going back to because for whatever reason, Joss Whedon has this weird thing to do that in every fucking movie. Because, like, do you remember that woman in the incredibly low cut shirt in Age of Ultron? They keep cutting back to her and her fuck up son that almost got
Mhm.
Hawkeye killed, and then like Ashley Johnson who voiced Ellie in The Last of Us, in the first Avengers movie. Like, and I didn't know that until today, by the way, that was Ashley Johnson in
I
the
had no
first
idea.
Avengers. Yeah, the waitress girl who was hitting on Captain America in the beginning, and then he saves, and then she's being interviewed at the end.
Mhm.
That's the woman who voiced Ellie. Um,
Oh, I thought a little girl. I thought it was a little
no.
girl that voiced it.
But yeah, you get that in this, yeah, but like that sequence where Batman is telling the Flash, like, look, because the Flash is having like that weird like meltdown thing, and he's like, just save one person, like
Mhm.
that whole thing, like that's great. And like him and Superman saving people. Again, Superman's line, that final fight against Steppenwolf at the end where they're all kind of all fighting him at once. Like, say what you will about Marvel, but you don't really get those until you get to Thanos. You didn't like this is the first time we really saw a
Yeah.
movie where you had a third act fight where all the heroes are fighting one person rather than a faceless army of weird things like the Qatari or the Ultron drones. Um, like that was a big difference, and I think that it worked a little bit there. Um, the rest of the movie is forgettable. I could have done without the first like bunch of this, and I don't know. Again, this is a problem with both this and the Snyder Cut. Why did you have a scene where you have a guy with super speed slowly digging up the grave of Superman in the middle of your movie? Like he's got super speed and he's sitting there and he's like digging it up with a fucking shovel and he's having casual conversation with Cyborg and it's like there's a better way to do this. Why does this have to be this way? It's just so silly. But yeah, I had the theatrical Justice
Yeah.
League that low. So you're number 5 now.
My next one is Birds of Prey.
Really, that low?
Yes.
That one I'm
That's
really
again, it's not
surprised
that
by.
I did like this. It's just the other ones I like better.
Yeah, I had that a lot higher.
And yeah, this one like yeah, I did like all of it. I thought it was an interesting story. Like I had never heard of the Birds of Prey before, so I think they did a good job like establishing what it is. And like
Mhm.
Ewan McGregor was a great bad guy. It was
Oh,
way
he's
more
fantastic.
violent than I expected it to be,
Yeah.
which that was kind of fun. Um, yeah, and then they killed the. This is what they killed the Joker in this one too.
Yes. Like kind of off screen, whereas
Just off
like,
screen,
yeah,
basically.
he just blows up his
Yeah,
factory and it's like, oh, he's dead now. It's like
I didn't
great.
even know. Yeah,
Yeah. It's such a great choice because it's like fuck Jared Leto.
yeah. That's funny that they. Yeah,
Yeah. I thought that the action sequences in this were
yeah, but
so
yeah,
well
it's just
done.
yeah, it was like interesting to look at. It was like
Yeah.
a new way to show these types of action scenes. The pet hyena was great. That was fun.
Yes. And it's like like there were some comedic moments that didn't exactly land, but a lot of it did. Like the whole thing where it's like when Rosie Perez falls into the trash and she gets back to the precinct and she's like, "Oh, I gotta meet with the DA, but I smell like this." So the guy's like, "Don't worry, just go into the lost and found and grab something out of there that's your size." And then it goes to the meeting with the DA, and it just they never shoot her below the neck anytime they show her. And then it's like at the end of the meeting, he
Mhm.
walks out and they show the full shot of what she's wearing, and she's wearing a shirt that says, "I shaved my balls for this." Like it's such a great
Yeah.
long played out joke. Um, and I think that a lot of the like there were some things that I was like, all right, I don't need this. Like I think that had they cut a lot of the stuff with the little girl, it probably would have flowed a little bit better. Because like I don't need as much of them going through the supermarket trying to find laxatives to get the girl to shit because she ate the diamond. Like I don't think that's necessary for
Oh
the
yeah.
movie. Um, but besides that, I think the movie works pretty well. Um, yeah, so I have that a lot higher on my list. My next one is the Snyder Cut.
Mhm.
Because I didn't hate the Snyder Cut, but I don't think the Snyder Cut added enough to it to make the movie better. And on top of that, I don't think that the things that were added did enough to like were the fault of this movie being cut, if that makes sense. Like I think we talked about it before, where it's like
Yeah.
it's it shouldn't be this movie's responsibility to lay out all of Cyborg's abilities, all of Cyborg's backstory, and all of Cyborg's ties to the mother box and how that ties into the thing, which is where a good hour of this comes in, hour and a half of this comes in.
Mhm.
And it's like you have to cut all of that, yes, because we can't fit this into a 2 hour runtime. But also the other thing that really struck me about it is you can pretty much cleanly cut this movie after the scene in Gotham Harbor and have 2 hour and a half movies or 2 hour movies. And I don't know why they
Yeah.
didn't
And
just do that.
there was no way the theatrical release was going to be 4 hours long.
Right. See, and that's the other thing is that there are so many things that go wrong in the timeline of this movie coming out. A lot of them come down to Zack Snyder, and a lot of them
Mhm.
come down to the studio not telling him to stop. Because the minute he hands you a script that's that long, you gotta be like, what the fuck? Why we're not going into production on this? Like, why are you handing like because it's like an hour 60 pages, so 4 hours would be 240 pages. It's like, why the fuck are you handing me a script this long? Like, we're not doing this. This is not
Mhm.
like not all of this is important. And it's like the problem was that I think at the time they kind of wanted to be the anti-Marvel, where Marvel was perceived as the studio that was like if you're a director working for Marvel, you are working within their studio system and doing what they want. And you're like a TV director where you're coming in, you're
Yeah.
doing you're part of the season long arc. DC was trying to do something different, but at the same time, you still gotta be like, look, we're giving you $250 million. You gotta have some constraints on you.
Yeah. There has to
Like
be cohesion between the
exactly.
other
Like
movies.
we can't sit here and have a fucking like 5 minute scene of just these random two girls in Finland singing, and it's like, yeah, but what's this adding? Why do we need this? Like, and it's just stuff like that where it's like, yes, like the action sequences look great. I loved the expanded sequence on Earth when Darkseid came to Earth. I really liked that. But like for every decision like that, there's like, okay, but now I gotta sit through fucking like Cyborg's origin story, and it's like I don't need that in a Justice League movie. It's the same thing where it's like someone asked Lawrence Fishburne if he was going to be back for Justice League, and he goes, "When I pick up the Justice League annual, I'm not reading it for what Perry White is doing." Like,
Yeah.
and that is exactly the problem with this movie. Why am I watching Barry Allen rescue Iris and then go to his dad and be like, "Man, it sucks that you're in jail for killing my mom, which you didn't do." It's like none of that is relevant. I don't even need that level of backstory to him in this movie. Like, and I'm a Flash fan. I could have done without that.
Yeah, and then they had to set up the mother box as Steppenwolf, who's dead. I forgot the other guy's, the big bad guy's name is
Darkseid.
But they had to like, set up almost all this. Yeah, they had to set up like all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like that. None of that's necessary.
And like the apocalypse equation or whatever that thing is.
Oh, the anti-life. It's like I don't understand. I don't understand why the anti-life equation, how he lost it that way. Like, how did he lose the anti-life equation on Earth and then not be able to figure out where Earth wants to go back to it?
Yeah.
Like, my GPS in my car can bring back the previous location we went to. What, this guy's fucking spaceship can't do that? Like, it's so, like, it's contrived what it is.
Mm-hmm.
What's your next one? Like I said,
my next one is Wonder Woman.
Okay.
The first one.
All right, that I could see being that low.
Yeah, it is. It's my number 5. Like,
that's true.
Of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this. Yeah, it was just. I think it was just like it was interesting. You don't really get to see many World War I movies, so that was kind of fun. And at
the time you didn't. Now we see them every other week.
That is true. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, now but now it's become very popular.
1918, fucking All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah, because at the time, I think everyone was like, "Oh, this is just going to be the first Captain America, but
exactly.
just in World War One."
Which it kind of is because they got the nameless Howard Commandos who don't do anything.
That is true, but they did a good job setting up like Wonder Woman's origin story and like the island and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then her like entering the world, and I thought Chris Pine did a great job.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
someone pointed out to me recently.
Scenes were kind of cool.
Someone pointed out to me recently that like in the movie, who Chris Pine is kind of weird because it's like when he's in the thing and he's like in the spa area like bathing, it's like he's standing there just cock out talking to like Wonder Woman with no shame at all, and then like later on in the movie he won't even sleep next to her because he's like no that's weird, that's a line too far because we're not married. But it's like I don't know, like 5 minutes earlier in screen time you were there like full frontal naked talking to her like nothing was wrong.
That's true.
That doesn't ruin the movie though, but it's just it's a good movie. It's the third act is a clusterfuck. I think that's where the movie loses me a little
actually
bit.
Yeah, I think the worst part is the reveal that the like war minister is actually Ares. I thought that was cool. I was like, oh, because he's like trying to promote this war. But then when he transforms into his like god self, and it's still the actor that played Lumen's face on this Lupus's face on this like monster, where it's just like this like 60-year-old British man with a mustache, and it's like you gotta change his
screaming
face.
Like a bad guy in God of War.
Yeah.
It just turned into like
it just Snyder it was like comedic.
Yes. I will destroy you. It's like, all right, calm down, buddy. Like, it's not that big a deal. And then it's like,
if you're gonna go CGI, you should just make him all CGI. Just make him like into a creature. Like, you don't need to have. He's obviously a shapeshifter, and he shapeshifted himself into a middle-aged British man. I don't think his true face is also middle-aged British man.
Because the thing is, earlier in the movie when they show Ares, it's not him.
Yeah. That's
Like
what
when
is
they
also
show the
confusing.
flashback, it's a different person. It's like, okay, but why do we need to have him there like this? And then not only that, but like, I think you don't need to have that fight at all in this movie. I think that like if she kills that guy, the German guy that she thinks is Ares, and then he shows up and he's like, no, that wasn't Ares. I'm Ares. I'm just, whispering in everyone's ear about what to do and let them kill themselves. And then he leaves. I think that's a much
Mhm.
stronger ending than this giant clusterfuck of a fight because I've never heard anyone say anything positive about the fight at the end of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that would have been more interesting because then it's not. She kind of still loses at the end. Then it's not.
Right.
She's not 100% like winning everything.
Right. And even so, like that end is so weird because it's like, okay, so World War II still happens in this universe, right? Because like she kills
Yeah,
Ares, and then like everyone comes out of this weird trance, and it's like, okay, but like,
peace
so
forever.
so the Holocaust just kind of happens anyway. Like it's such a weird
Yes.
thing to build into this.
So the Holocaust was just us doing the
Yeah,
Holocaust.
yeah.
Like humans are actually evil.
Yeah, like, and then it's like, is that the point they're trying to make? Because like, wasn't it in Snyder's original thing, if I remember correctly, it was like, oh, she used to help humans, and then she became desensitized to the ways of man, and then she went into hiding to not help them anymore. And it's like, okay, I guess, but like,
But also
why
become a very rich art collector
exactly? Where she's just kind of hanging out at the
by going
museum
around and possibly stealing
and
artifacts.
very specifically collecting art about herself too, like, and stuff about herself.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a weird
Isn't it also
decision.
weird? How does she know so much about ancient history? Because they like in Batman v Superman, they set up that it's like she's immortal, so that's and she's like lived through the past, which is how
Right.
she knows so much about like ancient stuff. But they also set up that she's lived on this island, doesn't know anything about mankind
Exactly. She lived on the
except
island.
from like World War I onwards.
Yeah, from like she knows about history, but like 1918 to the present. Like,
Yeah,
okay, like
yeah. So she
I don't
and
understand
then
how that
they keep
works either.
showing her as like this art dealer.
Yeah, it's like she's talking about, and that was the thing too that was really weird was that in Batman v Superman, she's in the museum and I haven't seen this movie in years, but I very vividly remember this. I was like, oh shit, they're setting up Vandal Savage. She talks to Bruce about the sword of Alexander the Great, and it's like, okay, but like, why would they know about that? Like, I get that she's like Greek, but like, wasn't Alexander the Great not Greek? Am I remembering that wrong? Like, and
He was
wasn't he just a
Macedonian,
guy?
which
Yeah, he was just a
it's
guy.
like
Like, it's not like he's
he
a
is
mythical
I
feature.
think from he's like yeah, they're saying like he was like he is magical or something.
Well, in DC he is. Because it's kind of like how
Oh,
King
okay.
Tut in Marvel is Kang the Conqueror. In DC, he is Vandal Savage.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was so pumped, like, oh holy shit, we're getting Vandal Savage, and then that never happened, and here we are. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I enjoyed Wonder Woman. I had it a lot higher on my list though.
Oh yeah, from basically for my list, from one after Wonder Woman 1984 up, I did enjoy all these movies.
Right,
It's just I'm gonna have some
to varying
controversial.
degrees.
My top picks are gonna be
I
controversial.
have a feeling, based on what's left, I would say yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
likely. My next one is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not saying is bad. I'm saying it is so like fucking boring. It's just like it can be interesting at times, but like so many decisions that get made in this movie, I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
why? Why? Okay, why is Lex Luthor acting like this? Like, how does Lex Luthor like the whole and the thing is too, it's like the third act fight, it's like why did he put the Spear of Destiny like three buildings away and hope that Superman would throw him in that direction through various other buildings to get into the building where the spear is? Like,
But remember, there's no civilians in that area.
yeah, no, I
That's
understand that.
important.
No, I get that. But like, what, like, because the thing is, it's like the spear, the kryptonite spear. I call it the Spear of Destiny because when the movie was coming out, people were predicting because there was that image that came out of him holding it. It's like, oh, that's the Spear of Destiny, and then it wasn't. But it when he has that, he puts it several buildings away. It's not in the
Yeah,
same
he has to
building
keep
where
it
the
safe.
fight starts because Superman throws him like 3 blocks, and it just so happens to be in that right direction where he ends up in the building where the spear is. And I'm like, how did he know that he was to get thrown in that direction by Superman when he came? And it's like the whole thing can just be solved, and Superman shows up and he's like, "Hey, by the way, I don't want to fight you, but Lex Luthor has my mother hostage." Like, considering the fight ends because of that, the fight could have been avoided if he started the conversation with that instead of being like, "All right, let's fucking go." Like, it's so the whole thing is so silly, and for the marquee matchup to begin and end that way is just kind of loses out the movie a little bit. And then for fucking Doomsday to show up, I'm just like, all right, I guess. Like, and this is also one of the first
Yeah.
trailers in the modern times I can think of that shows you basically the entire movie beginning to end in the second trailer.
Yeah,
Where it's
they
like,
clearly showed Doomsday and they're like, oh, okay, that's
yeah,
how they're gonna stop fighting at the end.
yeah, it's like Lex Luthor's gonna have him, and then he's like, he gets in the fight, and then they don't kill each other, and then he's like, "Fine, I'm gonna have Doomsday do it," and it's like, "All right, I guess." That said, it is probably one of the most faithful recreations of the Passion of the Christ on screen. Um,
Yes.
because that fucking the death of Superman is so ham-fistedly the Passion of the Christ.
Mhm.
It is
And
fucking
then
ridiculous.
in the background, there's like all the telephone poles or crosses, like
Yeah, and
everywhere
it's
in the
like
background of
he's
that
being
scene.
held by Amy Adams, and then it's like Wonder Woman standing next to him too, and it's like, and so is Batman and Saint Peter, and it's like, oh, shut the fuck up. It's like,
And then Batman has to use that incident to
yeah,
collect his
yeah, to collect his
disciples.
followers, and then and the thing is too, it's like, do you remember what day the movie came out? Good
Like Ash
Friday.
Wednesday.
It was Good Friday,
Okay. Yeah.
and I was like, this
That's
is
close.
so stupid, and it's oh
But
my god.
I think it's the only superhero movie that references drinking piss, which I think that's puts it high up.
I wouldn't even say it's the only DC movie because didn't they also do that in Aquaman?
I forget, but yeah, he gives that senator a jar of piss, which is kind of fun.
There's also yeah, and it's like that whole thing is so dumb. Like so many parts of Lex's plan are just kind of nonsensical that only work because the plot demands it. Because it's like I don't know, it's just so much of the movie is silly. And the thing is too is like I think that I was a much higher on it when it first came out because I think me and you both went into that movie seeing the reviews. It was like a 23 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, oh, this
Mhm.
is gonna be awful. And then we came out and it's like it's not that bad.
Yeah,
And it's like it's not, but not that bad is not good either. So it just kind of is. Um, so what's your next one?
my next one is Man of Steel.
Okay, so that would be there we go. All right. Um, Man feels a little higher for me.
Mhm. So for this was the one, yeah. I think this one, the all the stuff with like Kevin Costner gets a little bit boring after after a little
Yeah,
bit.
I agree.
And then when he like walks to a tornado, basically,
Yeah, I don't understand that
it's
either.
like
Like,
okay,
um, for me, my issue with the movie is entirely, um, I don't need 40 minutes on Krypton.
yeah, yeah. It's
I don't
like
think
wow,
anyone
they're
needs 40
really
minutes on
showing
Krypton.
a lot of this.
Yeah, I don't think any of that's needed. And just when you think it's over, it's like, oh shit, no, we're not. We still have more. Um, and I think that like here's the thing, the movie's not bad. And it's not a poor like that's the thing about this movie. And I would say even Batman v Superman, specifically the Ultimate Edition, they're not poorly made movies. Um, Zack Snyder can construct the scene very well. Um,
Mhm.
narratively, they tend to taper off between his three movies, with Justice League being the worst narratively of the three. Um, I think Man of Steel is the strongest. I just think it's not a great choice to lead off where this is all going. Like I think
Yeah,
that
I
that's
think it's too
fundamentally the
much.
problem. Yeah,
But it is the disaster point is great. I liked the like because that's what it would be like if someone like Superman fought someone else
another
like
thing like
Superman
Superman.
in a
Yeah,
city like that. like that's what would happen is like buildings would be falling. It would be crazy. I love the giant laser beams destroying everything. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's a
didn't
lot of
have a
fun.
problem with the destruction. I think my only real problem is I don't think Superman should have killed Zod.
By snapping his neck.
Yeah, I think that like the thing is, it's like, and philosophical questions, whatever about whether or not Superman should kill, whatever, whether or not you believe he should kill, that's neither here nor there. At the end of the movie, him making the decision to kill Zod is not earned because
It
nothing
feels
was
like sudden. Like it's almost like
right. But like
random.
the other issue is when you see him face off, like when you see him fight Zod, there's nothing about up until that point that tells him he shouldn't kill because Kevin Costner is not the the Pa Kent from the comics who's like you have to be the best of them. Like you have to be better than what everyone else is gonna be. You have to rise above and you gotta like basically what fucking Russell Crowe says to him in the what's it called? In the thing where it's like you need to be something for them to strive for and they'll eventually follow you out into the sun or whatever the fuck he says. But like that
Yeah.
that that is kind of what he needs his entire life up until that point, and not just be fuck the humans. If you want to help him. If not, don't. Because then by the time you get to the point where he's gonna
Yeah,
kill Zod, who
Podcasts,
cares?
his messaging is like it's actually better for you to let people die and hide who you are than to
Exactly.
show everyone who you
And
are,
it's like
even if it's your own father.
the only time he gets any counter messaging to that is when he talks to Jor-El and the hologram of Jor-El.
Mhm.
But it's like that happens so late into the movie and it only happens once that it's not enough for me to believe that he's gonna set his entire identity as a hero around what this guy who you don't know for certain if he's actually your father either. We the audience know, but like if I found a spaceship from a planet I'm from and the guy's like, "Oh hey, I'm your dad," I'm like, "Can I have a paternity test or something to prove that?" Like,
Yeah,
how the fuck
especially
do I
because
know?
anyone else from your that planet is evil.
Exactly. Like, why would you trust it? And it's like, and the thing is too, it's like if they can just terraform, why wouldn't they have gone to like
They
Venus
go
and
to an
terraform?
uninhabited planet.
Yeah, go to Venus and just fix that one, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna live here for a little bit, and then we're gonna go fuck up Earth. It's like there's a better solution here.
Mhm.
Um,
And
yeah,
that the Jor-El AI like becomes sentient
yeah, and
and
helps
starts
Amy
working with
Adams,
Amy
and it's like,
Adams.
all right, that's cool.
It's like so. I guess this is his father. Like,
And the product placement is
like it's not.
egregious.
Oh yeah, the IHOP
Yeah,
Pepsi.
the Sears that all
And
panned out for
with
them.
I remember this too is like maybe not like the movie as much when you told me it's like anytime the military is shown, every
Yes,
character has to listen to the military. And
yes.
then if you watch it, it's so much more blatant where yeah, Superman just sits down and follows all the orders from the US military.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, why? Why the fuck is Superman listening to the army? And it's one of the dumb rules where if you're gonna shoot and you're gonna use army equipment and army uniforms, you have to let the army have a first pass on the script. And that's the
Mhm.
reason why when you have Avengers, it's like, okay, well they're dealing with the NYPD and they're dealing with Shield, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that's
Like,
how you should do it.
yeah,
It doesn't need to be that realistic.
exactly. Um, but yeah, Man of Steel is it's not bad. I think it is it's a very competently made movie. It's just a lot of the decisions they make are not great. Um,
Yeah, I remember Zack Snyder when it was coming out was like, "Oh yeah, we changed Superman's uniform. And, like it's so unrealistic for him to wear underwear on the outside of his
oh,
uniform."
like
And it's like,
that was my
okay,
big
but
issue
you
with Zack
have
Snyder the entire way. Like, is he
and you
still
have people
flying?
flying around, yeah, shooting laser beams,
Yeah,
like
out
he's
of their fucking eyes.
invincible.
Like, I don't know. Like that was his whole thing. It's like, oh, we're doing a realistic take. It's like, yeah, but are you though? Because like, he's still Superman. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, my next one. Where was I? Aquaman's my next one. Um, Again, like we already said with Aquaman, it's just too much movie crammed into one. For it to be uh taken seriously, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah,
Like and it careens so wildly from tone to tone, and I don't understand. Like it's not a great all around thing. Um, yeah, I'm not super thrilled about Aquaman. Um, what's your next one?
My next one is the new Suicide Squad. That is my number 3
Okay,
pick.
all right, so Suicide Squad. I also really
Yeah,
enjoyed that.
that was a lot of fun. That's one I rewatched. It's very funny. Like the plot is good. I got completely tricked by the trailer, so I enjoy
Yes,
that too.
yes.
Whereas, like they got me. I did not expect that opening scene at all, and it was hilarious.
Seeing Pete Davidson die
Yeah,
was nice.
I really don't have. Yeah, that was a plus. Yeah, I really don't. I don't think I have anything negative to say. Actually, something funny is I was listening to. I forgot what I was listening to. It was in like an older podcast, and it was when the first Suicide Squad movie was coming out, and they were talking about how they thought Staryu or whatever that the monster
Oh,
is was going to
Starro.
be in the first Suicide.
Yes,
Starro, that's it. So it's hilarious that now and then that did end up happening eventually.
yes. Starro is it's a great choice for a villain. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
like all the they were funny. Like I think actually the only thing I guess the Amanda Waller stuff, um, I thought like the people around her were like kind of silly a little bit.
oh, you will not
That's I
like
think my only
Peacemaker then.
complaint. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're
Well,
all
I
main
think I don't know.
characters.
Maybe it fits in with the rest of Peacemaker.
Peacemaker has a very different tone from Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
But I did
yeah.
really
So
enjoy
maybe it fits
Suicide
better
Squad as
for that.
well. Like that whole thing with Bloodsport and Peacemaker going into the camp and just killing people in different ways in the con and having that little like silent contest as they just go through and
Yeah,
just shoot people through the walls and stuff. Um, I didn't care for Peacemaker in this movie. To the point where I was like, oh, that show I'm not going to be able to watch it. I really did not like John Cena. Um, but he put himself in the show. I think he did well in the show.
is the
Um,
show? I saw that. I had the same thought. That's why I didn't watch
yeah,
the
the
show.
show is really good. I think it's a lot of it comes from how they offset him with other cast members. Where it's like he becomes the straight man a little bit,
Okay, then
and it
I'll
works
probably
that
watch.
way.
I'll watch the show probably.
I have that on my rankings too. It's a little bit higher for me, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think that what's it called? I think that I also didn't. I thought it was a great choice to have Peter Capaldi as the thinker, and that was a waste. That was my only real complaint about it. Was I think they didn't use him enough. Um,
Yeah, I was hope because he didn't really do anything different than just a scientist would be
yeah,
doing.
like, and
So
yeah, I love Starro. But I have more thoughts on Suicide Squad in a little bit. My
okay.
next one after that is Man of Steel, which we just talked at length about, but Man of Steel, great. Um, so we're getting to a point now where you have two left, right? You have two
Yes,
left. I still
my
have,
top my
yeah, your
top two.
top two. Which
Do
looking at the list, I'm
you want
seeing
to do
what they are.
your next two, and then we
Yes, I'll do my next two because my
so
next
then
two
we
are both you
okay
haven't seen. So my next one is
okay.
Shazam. Which I
Mhm.
really enjoyed Shazam when I saw it in theaters, and DC was really gung ho on the movie. That they put it out like advanced screenings like 2 weeks early. So I was like, all right, let me see how good this is. And I had very low expectations, and they just blew me out of the water. Um, if I have a complaint, it'd be which there's always a complaint for me to have. It would be that I think Billy and Shazam feel like two entirely different characters, rather than just the same person but in an adult body. But like his family's endearing, and there's a scene in the movie where like his whole thing is like he got lost as a kid, and he was abandoned, and he got lost at a
Mhm.
at like an amusement park, and he goes to and he lost his mom, so he's looking for his mother the entire time, and he finally finds her, and his mom's like, "Oh no no no, you didn't get lost on accident. You walked away," and I was like, "Finally, I don't have to deal with this anymore," because she was a teen mom, and she's like, "I can't handle a
That's
kid,"
intense.
and it's like she tells him, and it's like you can just like the kid who plays Billy, like you can just see the expression on his face just fall as he learns his mother never
He was an
wanted him.
it, right?
No, I think the kid who was in It plays Freddy. Um, the friend
Oh,
who's like a
okay.
paraplegic or something like that. Um, or maybe he's not paraplegic. He's got like the braces, or he's got that thing that what's his name on Breaking Bad had, cerebral palsy.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But he what's it called? Yeah, and that whole thing is great. I think him giving the powers to the family is great. There's a Dogma homage in the movie that no one has ever admitted to, but I'm saying it's a Dogma homage because there's a scene in the boardroom where he just goes around talking about how everyone around him has committed sins, and then he just goes through and kills them all except for one. And I'm like, this is exactly from Dogma. I've seen this before, and no one has ever admitted it, but I'm gonna stick with that. But yeah, the movie is great all around. And I did really like Mark Strong. Was it Mark Strong or was it Stanley Tucci? As Dr. Savannah. Either way, whichever one it was, they did a great job. And my next one up is Peacemaker, which I didn't think I would like I said. But I did end up really enjoying the movie. And I think that it does what's it called? It does a lot to make you realize that, there is another side to Peacemaker as a character. I love the expansion of the side cast, even though a lot of them aren't great. And I don't know. I guess like the whole thing kind of worked for me. Having White Dragon as the bad guy was a great decision, and have him be played by who played the T-1000 in Robert Patrick.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he plays one of the bad guys. The guy who played what's it called? The guy who played the one that Hermione who was going out for Keeper that Hermione fucked up in Half-Blood Prince. I forget his name, but he plays Vigilante, and he's so funny. He's so funny in that show. Because they play Vigilante as a total ass. It just the whole show really just works. A lot more than I thought it was going to. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
I'm probably gonna watch that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching.
I think I'll watch
it's just so ridiculous. And that's the thing is that it's ridiculous. It knows it's ridiculous, and it fully embraces the ridiculous. And that's why it works.
Is it half an hour long episodes or hour long episodes?
I think it's one of those things where like they have these streaming shows where it varies depending on however long they need to get through it. Where it's like you could have an episode that's like 50, you could have 45. But it's not like Boba Fett where you're gonna get stuck watching something nonsensical for a long period of time.
Oh yeah, I tried watching the first episode of Book of Boba Fett.
Oh no, you don't have to.
It was
the first episode where it's just Dancing with Wolves, but with Boba Fett.
I was like, oh my god, what is going on?
Yeah, I watched that whole show from beginning to end. That was not good.
Because I was like, I can't. It literally felt like a 3-hour long movie. That was just an hour.
Yeah, and then on top of that too, it's nothing else happens from there. You have to get through that to like just. I think I told you, just skip and watch the episodes about the Mandalorian. Don't bother with the stuff about Boba Fett because it's nonsensical and stupid. Yeah, it's not good. But yeah, what was your number 2?
My number 2. It is the Snyder Cut Justice League.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
The 4-hour long event. So everything you said is correct. I cannot defend your critiques of this movie. And I will not try to, but I love it. I love an event. I love watching those old epics like Lawrence of Arabia and like Cleopatra. I'm not saying this is as good as those movies, but I just love. I watch Lord of the Rings extended cut, the extended editions. So just having someone like give you this giant like movie where it's like this is a 4-hour long like movie. I just I enjoyed that. I was like, this is kind of fun. I have only watched it once. I have not tried to rewatch it.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Because it is so long.
Oh, you didn't watch it again when it went black and white?
No, I did not watch the black and white version. I don't think it needs a black and white version.
No.
But
or as we call it, the regular edition is the black and white version.
Yeah, that's the Kino edition.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking bullshit.
I like Zack Snyder fine. I don't like 300 that much, but I'm not one of these. That's why I almost have to like defend myself, where I'm not a militant, insane
Yeah,
Zack
I'm not
Snyder
a
fan.
lunatic. Like
Yeah. It's just for me, it works. I can't explain it. I just liked it.
the Todd Howard approach. It just
Yeah.
works. Um,
Steppenwolf did look way better though,
it
with
did, yeah.
his
I'm not
this
saying,
cool
and
like
the thing is too is like,
scaly
I'm not
armor.
saying that it's a worse movie than the theatrical. I'm saying that even if they had
Mhm.
released this in theaters, it still wouldn't have solved a lot of the problems. Like a lot of the
Oh yeah, because
fundamental
it would have
problems.
been maybe 2.5 hours.
Well, no, like let's say for argument's sake, they take
Like
the
yeah, there's
movie
no
and they cut it after the Gotham Harbor fight. And then they split it into part one, part
okay.
two, and they released it that way, and we get this whole movie released. You still have the same structural problems and the same narrative flow
Hmm.
problems that existed in the theatrical, because the theatrical is just a 2 hour or 2.5 hour cut of the Snyder cut with some other stuff added in. And it's like it doesn't
Yeah.
solve those problems. It's still they're still there because the general structure is still the
Yes.
same. And the post credit scene is ridiculous.
Yeah. Actually, something that's very stupid that I think it's in both cuts is when in the beginning Batman just happens upon one of those alien creatures and then
No,
he kills it.
that's only in the theatrical.
Okay, that part is one of the stupidest things ever.
Yes,
And
where
his
he
like
puts the criminal
splatter
up as
like is the
bait.
mother box.
Yes, and then it's
Oh
like
yeah,
in
yeah,
at the
okay.
end of
That
that at
part's
the end of that
okay.
they have that whole sequence where he's running around in that Eastern European town with like sirens going on the Batmobile because he's like, this is what hurts them. If you play this noise, it hurts them. And it's like, okay, sure, I guess. Like, I
Yeah.
guess.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, I must have confused those then.
yeah, which I think
Um
is highlights the problem with the movie.
yeah.
But yeah, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. Like the theatrical is bad. I'm not defending the theatrical. What I am saying is
Okay.
the Snyder cut is not perfect. And it doesn't
Oh
do
yeah.
what a lot it doesn't
Well
exonerate Zack Snyder in the way that
that's
people
why it's my
act like
number
it
two
does.
pick.
Right.
Because my number one
Your
pick
number one
is
pick is
perfect.
perfect. Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Um I think I fucked up because I'm still at number three. My number three is Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did really enjoy Wonder Woman, despite I saw it in theaters and I've watched it again since, and I think it is one of the I think the top my top three are all the most rewatchable movies, in my opinion. Because I would rewatch
Mhm.
Wonder Woman, I would rewatch my number two and number one. I think that Wonder Woman is um it's for what it did, it was very interesting, and I think that like toward the middle, I think that of all of the DC movies, it has the strongest like second act, which we don't really talk enough
Yeah.
about, I don't think. Where it's like it has the most interesting middle and meat of the movie, where it's like seeing her come to man's world and learn how to like become like a functioning person kind of is fun to watch. Um
Mhm.
I just don't think that what's it called? I just think the other two are better than Wonder Woman. I think that the third act does drag it a bit, and I think that's if it nailed the third act a little bit better, it probably would have been number two or number one. But it's just that
Yeah.
third
It's
act
one of
doesn't.
the few superhero movies where you're not waiting to get to the climax, where it's enjoyable to watch throughout.
Yeah, it's kind of like Black Panther in that regard, where
Mhm.
it's like you've seen Black Panther, right? The first
Yes, I've
one.
seen the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like once you get past the point where it's like he comes back to Wakanda and that giant fight's happening, you're like, I know what happens from here. I can turn this off now.
Hmm.
It's like I don't need to watch this again because it's like it oh, so he's gonna go down into the tunnels and fight Killmonger in a weird CGI awful effects kind of look. I don't need to watch any of this anymore. I know what happens from here on out.
Hmm.
And it's kind of that same thing with
Yeah.
Wonder Woman. Um, but my number two was Birds of Prey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did really
I'm
enjoy
surprised it's
Birds
that
of
high
Prey.
up.
No, I really enjoyed it, and I think that the biggest mistake that this movie made was being called Birds of Prey and
Didn't they
not
change the
being.
name?
They changed it after release. They changed it to Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, which is what it should have been from the beginning.
Yeah.
I think that they also should have marketed it
Yeah.
a little bit differently. I think that like it also didn't help the movie that it came out immediately before a pandemic, but that's not their fault.
Mhm.
But like I
At least
think
it came
that's
out.
yeah, exactly. It's everything about the way that they play Black Mask is fantastic. I love the dynamic of the team. I love them playing Huntress as kind of this socially awkward homeschool girl who doesn't know how to interact with people. Um, like that whole thing's great. That fight at Amusement Alley at the end is just fantastic. It's everything that like I've wanted from a Batman movie, but they gave it in a Birds of Prey movie, and it just works so
Mhm.
well. Um, and it just all the character dynamics work so well together, and I think they all interact in unique ways that make it. It's probably my favorite. Like of what they've done, it's probably got my favorite action sequences of any of the movies. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
they
stick
are
to that.
good. And this one especially, I went in with lower expectations, and I did really like it.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. Um, so you're number one, which will surprise people. Which also
Yes,
completely
my number
fucks up the
one.
rankings for the final ranking, which we'll get to that at the end. Because I made a spreadsheet. We'll talk about that after. But yeah, you're number one.
My number one is Batman v Superman, the director's cut,
Yeah,
the ultimate edition, or whatever
I don't
it's
know how the fuck
called.
that happened. Yeah, the ultimate
All
edition of
right, and
Batman v
then this is
Superman.
another
I
one.
want to hear your defense of this.
all, all of your critiques are correct. And it is hard for me to defend this movie, but this was my rankings of what I like.
Yes. Yeah, I
And
understand that.
I think a, a part of it is I love the Dark Knight, the comic, and it was cool seeing it like represented on screen.
Yeah, but it's not earned.
I don't know. I like the new. It's not. I like the new Alfred. Lex Luthor, I thought it's funny. It's like
Yeah, I
annoying.
didn't care for Lex at all.
Um,
Unless like if they said that
the
like Lex was actually the Joker, I would have
I
been like,
like
okay.
I like the fun random injustice sequences where
Yeah, I
you
don't
get
understand that
weird
either. And it's
flash
like,
forwards
and then it's like,
to a
and then
desert.
the thing that bothers me the most about this movie is that these things are so nonsensical. And then if you call out that they're nonsensical, you're the asshole who doesn't understand it. It's like, no, I understand what they're going for. Like, it's very clear. Zack Snyder's about as subtle as a mallet, but like, I don't understand why it fits into the plot of this movie because it doesn't change what Bruce Wayne is going to do. Like, him seeing
Yes.
that nightmare sequence doesn't change his idea of what he's going to do from there on out. It just continues the same trajectory as it was before. Like it's it's the guy who was complaining about
Has anyone
post credit
else
scenes.
has anyone else ever pointed out that Batman and Superman's mom have the same name? That's interesting.
I feel like no, just because they're just popular names from the time when the character was created. It's like, all right, I guess, like, sure, why not? Like, but like the thing is, it's like Zack Snyder took such a stance against post credit scenes before the movie came out because someone asked him in in an interview on the junket. It's like, oh, are there any post credits? Like, oh, no, no, no. Real movies don't have post credit scenes. No, all you do is you take the action, grind it to a halt to show them in the middle of the fucking movie instead, because that happens twice in
Yes.
this movie, where it happens once with the nightmare sequence, and then it happens again when you do the dumbass one where she's just staring at the computer. And for some reason, Lex Luthor had a graphic designer come up with logos for all the Justice League members. So he's just
Before
sitting
they
there
did.
watching footage. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Lex Luthor created the Justice League, basically.
Yeah, he created the logos for the Flash, for Cyborg, and for Aquaman. But like, based on what? Like, why? It's so dumb. And it's like, I don't know. And again, I don't hate the movie. I'm not saying I hate
I
the
also
movie.
I like giant chyrons. There's a couple of those in there.
Okay. Oh, so you love Civil War then?
That is true. Yeah, they got that good. That was good in Civil War.
The giant queens
And
across the screen.
I really like the there's good product placement when Bruce Wayne jumps into a Jeep Compass and drives around
I forgot about that.
Metropolis as it's crumbling.
Yeah, I
But
see
that was
that
cool, where
sequence
it was
is
like in
see
real
that's cool.
time
Yeah,
from
and it
Man of
lines
Steel.
up properly with the movie too. Like if you put the
And
two
there's a
side by side,
horse,
they
and
line
it,
up.
like there's a horse in the Dark Knight.
Oh yeah, I don't I again, Zack Snyder doing things without understanding the emotion, like the whatever. I'm not like
It's
it's
literally just like, hey, remember that?
you know what it is? It's like if you put in the Dark Knight Returns into like Chat GPT and said, "Hey, can you spit me out a script
Hmm.
about this and then also include Death of Superman too?" It's like you get Batman v Superman. Because it's
Yep.
like it's very much that
Yeah, because
idea of
Superman
like go
the
ahead.
Superman dies. He gets hit by the nuke, just like in the comics, and comes back. But then there's Doomsday and all this other fun
Yeah.
stuff.
And it's like it's very much where it's like if you when an AI writes a story, it pulls from tropes that it can find on the internet, but the AI can't
Mhm.
interpret why they work in the context of the original. They just put them in, and it just feels weird.
Yeah, so they got
That's kind of
cliches.
what this is
Yeah.
exactly. It's just a series of things where it's like, oh, this was in this thing, this was in this comic, this was in this comic, and then it's like, okay, well, whatever. We get it. We get like we get that you've read a comic at some point in your life, but like, can you make a movie now? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's just
All
not.
those are correct. But I think I've rewatched this movie like 10 times.
Yeah, and you
I
gave me
I don't
shit
know
for
how
watching
why.
Age of
It's just
Ultron multiple
it
times.
get it's way better than Age of Ultron.
I'm not gonna say it's not.
Well, the other thing was when you were rewatching Age of Ultron, you
You're seeing
didn't
in the
like
theater.
it. You kept
No, I
rewatching it
didn't.
and just
No,
saying,
I didn't.
and then saying
It
how
was
much
more
you didn't
boredom
like.
after because I was working at JC Penney and I was like, I'm bored. Let me go here after work because I'm already at the mall. Like,
Yeah, it's like I watched it again.
I did see Batman v Superman 3 times in the theater though.
Yeah, there's like whole part. I think I saw it twice, and then I bought the director's cut.
Oh, I have that too somewhere.
I
I had
did
the
not
steelbook.
buy the Snyder cut.
I didn't only because I forgot. And I'm not gonna pay 30
Yeah,
bucks for it. I'll pay 10 for it on Black Friday, but I'm not gonna pay 30 for it. Yeah, it's not I don't know. It's not
oh,
a
yeah. I can't even
see that's the
decide
problem
my
is that
own
it's like it's
subjective
like it's
experience.
hard to defend, but it's also hard to attack because it's like it's just a perfectly okay movie. Like it
Mhm.
and all of and the thing is too, if you complain about the stuff, it feels like you're nitpicking a lot of the time. Like that's how I feel like complaining about the
Mhm.
movie. Like I feel like I'm nitpicking. Um and it's like that's not it's just it's cumbersome. But yeah, my number one was the Suicide Squad. Um,
Mm.
and maybe it is recency bias to an extent, but seeing that movie and it's just like everything about it just worked for me. I loved the cast. I loved all the interactions. The sequence of Harley escaping um from her being captured is great. Them going and fighting Starro at the end. Like getting Starro was just something that I was like, this is just perfect. Um, like I think everything about it kind of just clicked and worked. And I think the thing is too, it's like why this and I don't know if I would have ranked it this high if the first Suicide Squad didn't come out and was as
That's
bad.
true.
Because like unlike the other ones, you don't get that comparison. But yeah, I think that it's a solid movie all around. Um, I would
Yeah.
be, I would be, I'm interested. Like it's the kind of thing where I'm now interested to see what Gunn wants to do in the future with DC. To
Mhm.
the degree that I'm willing to sit through a movie about the Authority that no one gives a shit about besides James Gunn. Um, it's just kind of I like I don't know. I think he did a great job with it. I think it's a fantastic
Yeah.
movie.
This
Uh,
movie, if someone's like, I don't like movies, I think you could show them this movie and they would enjoy it.
right. It's like it's up there with like Logan or like I would say probably arguably even Infinity War you could probably throw in there. Um
Yeah, like it's
like
an objectively good movie.
right, exactly. Um and it's like I think it does very well for itself. I'm not sure why you had it below Batman v Superman. Um
That for me, it just doesn't. I need Christ imagery.
Yeah, exactly. And you need characters to complain to each other, and it's like and Batman to kind of like mumble to himself. Like that whole scene where we're getting back to Batman v Superman, but that whole scene where Batman's going around and he's having that chase, and then Superman just crashes his car, and it's like Superman's like, okay, so the Bat's dead. Don't let me catch you doing this anymore. And then Batman's like, do you bleed? And then Superman flies away, and then he's like, you will. It's such a
But
bitch thing because Superman's not even there to hear it. It's like,
well,
okay.
he has super hearing. He probably heard it.
Well, yeah, but it's like he doesn't know that. Like it's just it's so dumb because he's like, you will. It's like, okay. You said it behind his
Yeah.
back. Cool. Um yeah, I think we have a solid ranking here now that we have a so what I did to get a definitive ranking was you only saw 10 of the 13. I saw all 13. I took
Mhm.
mine and scaled it to 10 points, and then I averaged our scores.
Okay.
So
Okay, that makes sense.
here's the ranking. So number 10 or number 13,
Like,
Suicide Squad, 2016. Number 12, The Theatrical Justice League.
yes.
Number 11, Wonder Woman 1984. Number 10, Black Adam. Number 9, Aquaman. Number 8, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Mhm.
Number 7, Man of Steel. Number 6, Shazam. Number 5, Birds of Prey. Number 4, Wonder Woman. Number 3, Batman v Superman. Number 2, Peacemaker. And number 1, Suicide Squad, the 2021 Suicide Squad. Because you gave it an
All right.
8.
I think that's
You gave it
a good
8
number
points, and I
one.
gave it 10, so it ends up at 9, evened out.
Mhm.
So yeah, that I think that's a good definitive ranking. And Josie didn't get me hers. I gave her 2 weeks notice, and she still couldn't get me the fucking things in on time.
She probably
Like
would have picked Batman v Superman to go
I don't think
Peacemaker.
she would have. I think the issue is I think she has a passionate dislike for DC. Like I don't think she liked any of these movies.
So she didn't even want to rank them.
I guess she didn't say anything. Um, yeah. So now, before we wrap up this year's DC movies, do you have any interest in any of those? There are 4 coming out this year.
Possibly just because it's new stuff. So I
Yeah.
don't
So
know.
the 4 this year.
I'll have to
So
wait and see.
this week is Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
I
Um,
probably will not see that.
yeah, I have minimal interest in that. That second trailer really scared me off a little bit. The next one is The Flash.
I might see that.
Which I have an issue with the fact that at one point in the trailer they have the Flash at gunpoint, and I'm like, that shouldn't be happening in a
And he's
Flash
afraid of
movie.
it.
Yeah, he shouldn't be afraid of a gun. I have, considering that the last time we saw him was in the Snyder Cut, and he ran so fast he turned back time. I don't think a bullet is something that should be whatever. Then is Blue Beetle, which we know next to nothing about besides Susan Sarandon's the bad guy.
That's fun.
And the guy from what's that show? Cobra Kai is playing Blue Beetle. And then wrapping up the year is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is getting test reviewed so poorly that people are walking out of test screenings, which is a
Which
great
you are
sign.
usually free or you get paid to do.
Exactly, people are walking out of the test screenings, so we do with that information what you will.
Is that Jason Momoa's last Aquaman movie?
I think so. I think it's Jason Momoa's last Aquaman movie and probably James Wan's last DC movie.
Yeah.
I don't think he's
and
coming
maybe
back
Amber
for another
Heard's
one.
last movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I've heard they've reduced her role greatly because it's like they don't want to deal with that, for obvious reasons. But yeah, nothing about this year really strikes me as interesting. And the whole Ezra Miller situation is not exactly something that's providing comfort.
No.
To the whole Flash
Michael
thing.
Keaton will be fun though. I want to see it more from Michael Keaton than
see but therein
anything
lies
else.
my problem. The movie is called The Flash, and when you read the synopsis, it's like can Batman come out of retirement to save the day? It's like, well, that's not what I'm here to watch. If I'm here to see a Flash movie, um, yeah,
And
it's just
it feels like they're kind of copying the newest Spider-Man too, which is like the old
yeah,
Spider-Mans.
yeah. I feel like that's kind of where it's what like I think that like I don't think it's copying because at this point they would have had this movie in production for such a long time because fucking like they cast Ezra Miller before the Flash TV show began, and the Flash TV show is ending its ninth season, um, like next month or 2 months from
Oh
now.
yeah, it's also fun in Batman v Superman when the Flash comes and you can't even see who it is, and people didn't know that was the Flash
Yeah, and
when he has like after like a 5 o'clock shadow.
yes, yeah, because he's also in the future, and I guess like
Yeah,
Um, but like the whole thing with the like, and that was the whole thing too. It's like, oh no, 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 we're not going to use the CW Flash because he's too goofy for this grounded universe we're in. It's like, oh, just shut the fuck up. Like he coexists with the Green Arrow. It's fine. Like it works. Like
and he is constant, and the Ezra Miller Flash is constantly making jokes.
that's his entire role. Like I think I said
Yeah,
it when it came out. I'm like, he's closer to Wally West than he is to Barry Allen. I don't understand it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not 100% on board with this Flash movie, only because I kind of want them if they're going to reboot, I want them to clean break, and I want them to start fresh.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to be like, okay, we're going to like. I understand keeping Amanda Waller around because it's a small role that like you can carry that over from beginning to end. But if you're recasting Superman, if you're recasting Batman, if you're possibly recasting Wonder Woman, um, why is the
And Aquaman.
Flash gonna stay the same? Um,
Yeah.
Especially considering the baggage that Ezra Miller has. It just doesn't make sense to me. Um, but I'll see it. It's opening against the Pixar movie that weekend. So they have some
Ooh.
confidence in it. It's opening against Elemental. Um, are there any other movies you're looking forward to this year besides Evil Dead Rise?
Uh. I don't know. I'm sure there are. I
Let,
just
let's let's just
don't
double
think.
check real
Oh,
quick
Dune
how
2.
far we are on the draft. If
Dune
anyone's had any releases yet.
Dune Part 2.
Oh yeah, Doom Part Two is this year. Um,
Oh yeah, the
so
Bene Gesserit show has completely stopped production.
yeah, yeah, that happened a little while ago. So far for the movie draft, neither of us have actually had any movies come out yet. Um,
Perfect.
so yeah, yours is a lot later in the year. You have Dune Part Two and Fast 10 or Fast X, Oppenheimer, Hunger Games, which you may need to sub out, and the Marvels. And then also your extra was
Mhm.
Evil Dead Rise. I have Guardians 3, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Indiana Jones, Super Mario, Blue Beetle, and then Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I have a feeling Hunger Games might get delayed. I'm getting that twinge in my stomach that comes with delays because Marvel moved the Marvels to the week prior.
Oh, okay.
So I'm thinking they're going to delay that or move it up to
Mission Impossible
August.
is going to be really good.
I think I'm hearing that's another one that I'm hearing very good things at test screenings for. I'm hearing what's it called? What was the I heard it's about 3 hours long, but people are loving it anyway.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah, all that series is very good. It's like each
yeah.
one gets better.
And I'm tired of the 3 hour movies, but that one's one that I'm like, all right, I'll sit through that. Like
Yeah, I
John
would
Wick
definitely sit
4
through that
comes
one.
out in 2 weeks. That movie is 2 hours and 50 minutes,
That's too much.
which at the same time, Collider said it's the best action movie of the last decade.
I'm sure it'll be good action, but I can't believe it'll be the best of the last decade.
Especially since The Raid 2 came out in 2014. Like, I
Yeah,
think
okay.
I think
Yeah,
it's hard to
exactly.
say that that's not the best action movie of the last easily 20 years. So to say that this is going
And
to
I
unseat
don't think
that.
it's and I don't think it's 3 hours long either.
No, 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 no. The Raid is not 2 hours long, 3 hours long. I don't even think it's two. Um, but yeah, this movie is going to that
Yeah.
one's long. What else is coming out that's long? Like they're like the new Scream movie is like two and change, and I'm like, why are you making a horror movie over an hour and a half? Like
Mhm.
if your horror movie is longer than an hour and a half, you fucked up somewhere. Um, it's just kind of silly. And then there was another. There like the advent of the 3 hour movie is what I'm kind of tired of at this point. I hope we can get away from that. I have a feeling Dune Part Two will be 3. I would not be surprised if Dune Part Two was
That's
3.
fine.
No, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that like Elvis didn't need to
Yeah.
be 2:45. You probably could have done without about 15 minutes from Wakanda Forever. Babylon definitely did not need to be 3 hours. Avatar, you could have shaved about a half hour and still have been 15 minutes over where you should be. Um, did you see Avatar, by the way?
No, I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
wanted to. I
fine.
just didn't have the
Yeah,
motivation.
yeah, I saw that movie and I was like, it's pretty, but it's like it's up for Best Picture, and by the time this comes out, people will know if it won or not, which I don't think it will. But
I
um,
don't think it will.
no, I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is taking home Best Picture. Um,
Mhm.
I think that's a foregone conclusion. I don't think I've seen it like the last movie to sweep the way it has was Argo, and then Argo ended up winning Best Picture, I think, with Ben Affleck. Um, yeah. Oh well. Um, so I think that just about wraps it up. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up for the day?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm all set.
Yeah, I think we got everything. Have you watched The Last of Us? Have you caught up?
Oh
I
yeah, yeah.
don't.
That's a show I actually watch week to week. I'm
Yeah,
actually all
I
caught
don't
up.
think you've been on since The Last of Us started. What do you think about it?
I'm liking it. There's sometimes I feel like I don't know. It's like, oh, this is like a filler episode, like the one where it was like the entire episode with her and the friend in the mall. I was like, all right, we don't need this. Like
That's based
a
on a
whole
DLC.
episode about this.
Left Behind was
Oh
a
wow.
DLC. Yeah.
Okay.
Um.
But it was like interesting to hear like what actually happened. Um, but yeah, the most recent episode I thought was really good with the religious like people
Yes.
and like you find
The
out they're
the cannibals.
eating people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I thought
guy
there was gonna be a much
James.
better. I wish there was a better reveal where like when they get the deer, they they feed the people actual venison, and then everyone figures out by eating real deer that they've been eating people.
Oh, that would have been. I
That's
think
what I
that.
thought was gonna happen, and then
Yeah.
I thought they're like that because that other guy showed like doubt with the leader. I thought what was going to happen was instead of um, them having to fight their way out, like the town was going to revolt against the leader guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it? Troy Baker, who played James. He voiced Joel in the game. Um, the guy who was second in command.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he
Hmm.
voiced Joel in the game. He was saying that like
That's cool.
he gave a breakdown of it on something recently that I was listening to, and he was like, well, the point of that is like, um, he like it has to show that Ellie is more like the entire point of this episode deviates greatly from the game, because they need to show Ellie has a more violent tendency, that they
Hmm.
didn't set up in part one of the game, but is important for part two, which is what season
Yeah,
two
when
is
she
going
goes
to
on a
be.
rampage.
Um, and I think that they need to like that's what that is it's a lot of we have the benefit of hindsight now that part two is out to be able to go back and change one and
Hmm.
tweak it to better line up part one and part two. And I think they're doing a good job of that.
Yeah,
Do you know how the game ends?
the first one.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't. I forget.
Oh, you're in for a treat tonight then, which I think tells you just how little HBO thinks of the Academy Awards because when it was the Super Bowl, they
They put it
moved
on a
The Last of
Friday.
Us to Friday. Today, it's like, yeah, we're counter programming the Academy Awards.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that you're in for a fun one tonight, I think. Um,
I didn't even know it was the finale tonight, so that is
yeah,
exciting.
tonight's the finale. And then it's gonna be like 2 years till the next season
Yeah.
because I think they gotta wait for like Bella Ramsey to age up a little bit. Um, and yeah, I don't know if the second season is gonna be as divisive as the game was, because you don't get out of context screenshots that make people think things that aren't accurate to the reality of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That make people
Yes.
go into the game with unrealistic expectations for what the game will be. Which on that note, that's all I'll say on the matter. That whole nonsense was fucking ridiculous, though.
Oh
Because it's
yeah.
like I never played the game not because of the leaked screenshots, but because I played like the beginning of the first Last of Us, and I've said this before. If your game has stealth in it, I will not play your game as a key
Yeah,
component.
I'm the same way. I'm fine with some levels, like sneaky
Yeah,
levels, but I really don't like whole games where you have to sneak around.
yeah, like Spider-Man has the Mary Jane levels where it's like you have to play as Mary Jane to sneak through the various places, and it's like okay, that's few and far between. Like here, like every fucking level you're sneaking around, like fuck this, I don't have the attention span for this, I'm not doing this, fuck it, and then I'll play something else.
Yeah,
Um,
Outlast is the same way. I didn't like that as much
yeah,
because you had to sneak around everywhere.
and it's like, and I said that at work, and someone's like, oh, you never played Splinter Cell, and I'm like, no, I didn't, for much the same reason. Um, but
Yep,
it's
I remember I
like,
rented Splinter Cell from Blockbuster and I hated it.
yeah, and it's like that was why I never played the second one. But like, I just remember the vitriolic hate about the game before it even came out, based on the screenshots. And then I found out after the fact, like this year, I found out, oh no, that wasn't even what happened in the game. It just it took a screenshot out of context
Yep.
because it's like they're like, oh, she looks very butch, so she must be trans. It's like, no, she's just living in the post-apocalypse, which like everyone would look like that if they were entirely dependent on hunting and gathering to stay alive. Like it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Actually,
valid
Video
point.
Game Donkey did a really good review of it. Where yeah, he actually just shows what the game is.
Yeah,
Because I also thought it was like completely different, and then I watched his review and I was like, oh, this is like what it actually the game is about.
right. And it's just silly is what it is. Not the game, but like
Mm-hmm.
the outcry
The
over it.
hatred towards it
Yeah, it's
over false information.
exactly, which is like, and you bought into it like without thinking about it, and you know, oh, whatever. Um, but yeah, we will. I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. The next time you will be on, we're gonna do a documentary exchange in April. Where we're gonna come and talk about
Yes.
documentaries. A bunch like whatever documentaries we watch that we find interesting, we're gonna do a, a discussion of those. Hopefully, Josie will be on for that because she uh has a complex work schedule when it really shouldn't be as complex as it is. Um, it shouldn't be this difficult, but we will be back for that. So until then, have a great rest of your week.